Coming up on today's show.
Well, in theory, you could use these 6 steps for any kind of project you're trying to organize, be it a computer project or a physical organization project.
Now, do you have any rules of thumb as far as measuring for containers or how you would design the use of containers in a particular space?
But there's a process to organization. It's not just like one day you decide, I can't take the mess anymore, I'm just going to start. If you have a process, you're going to be more successful.
The 6-step process for organizing any project, today on Keeping You Organized. Hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. Today we are going to take you through some steps for organizing any kind of project, and these are methodical steps, so we're going to bring on a methodical person, Lori Krolik, moretimeforyou.net. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a great day here, and all is good.
Okay, good. Well, listen, we're going to talk about these steps. Would you consider this project management or organizing? Kind of what category does this fall under, these 6 steps?
Well, in theory, you could use these 6 steps for any kind of project you're trying to organize, be it a computer project or a physical organization project. But there's a process to organization. It's not just like one day you decide, I can't take the mess anymore, I'm just going to start. If you have a process, you're going to be more successful.
Okay, well, let's dig into this process and start with step number 1. What is step number 1?
Step number 1 is to design your plan. That means you need to know what you're going to do. Like I said, a lot of people just come in, they're going to get organized, and they go out and buy a bunch of containers, or they just start randomly throwing things away. But you need to know why you're doing this. What do you want from your space? How are you going to use it? A lot of people have multi-purpose rooms or rooms where they just throw a lot of things in. And so you need to know what the purpose of the space is, how you're going to use it, who's going to use it, and then also what are you going to do with the stuff that you're going to take out of the room.
Well, I've heard a lot of people talk about, you have to have a place for everything, right? A place for everything, everything in its place. But does some of that tie into this why and how it might fit into a particular room?
Well, when you sort of start thinking about what the purpose is of the room, you start to really identify then what should be there and what shouldn't. So it helps you think about what really should be in that space. And then you can, when you get down to the other steps, you can get to the more granular level of where things are going to go. Okay,
so let's talk then about when you get together with a client, how long would maybe this process take? Do you go and sit down first and talk general and then go room by room, or what if this is a project that you're working on? How would you talk and interview someone through this process?
So with the client, each of these 6 steps would apply to, some of the things that would happen would apply to multiple spaces, but we would address the 6 steps for each space. So knowing what you're going to do in this space and how you're going to use it. And I ask them questions like that, who uses this? What do you want from this? Is this your office or is this a guest room? If it's both, how are you going to devote part of it to guests and part of it to office? If it's your living room and you have your kids' toys in there, that's fine, but what does it need to be both, or can we figure out a solution to move some of the things into your kids' rooms and get your living room back? So I ask them questions like that to get them to start thinking about what the purpose is, and then I actually have them write down what is their goal for this project. What do they want the room to look like? How do they want to use the space once it's organized? And how's it going to make them feel when they get to that point?
All right, now you've worked with a lot of different clients. What have been some of the interesting or more unusual whys and the situations surrounding it?
Well, a lot of people don't really know what they want. They just see a mess and they're like, I just want it to be better. So I just have to ask them a lot of questions to get them to really narrow in on how they want the space to be. You need to make decisions. Like if you just don't have a mission or a decision in place, it's really hard to come to a conclusion on what the ultimate goal is going to be, and it's hard to get there.
Right. And these principles apply both to home organizing and office organizing as well?
Yeah, definitely both to home. It could apply to your living room, but in an office as well, you have to have a plan for where are your papers going to go? Where are your supplies going to go? How do you want to use this? I see a lot of home offices where kids stuff is in there and spouses stuff is in there. And if it's going to be mixed people coming in there, how do you make sure you can find what you need when you need it versus their stuff is not getting mixed in with your stuff?
Okay, so we've got the why established. That's the first step. What's the second step of the 6 steps?
So the next question I ask my clients is, why haven't they been successful in the past? They need to identify their obstacles. So what has prevented them from doing this on their own? A lot of times people contact me and they're like, I should just be able to do this myself. Why haven't I been able to do this myself? So often the biggest thing that I see is they start a project and they don't finish. So when people work on their own, they start to clean up the space and they say they're getting organized, but either something draws their attention away or they get far enough along that they make enough of a dent and they feel good. But if you don't finish soon enough, things start creeping back in and things get out of place again. And then if you start to organize, you have to really start all over again. That's good.
Oh, I was going to say, do you think sometimes just like not having allowed enough time would be one of those obstacles?
Yeah, that's another one. So time is a huge obstacle. So you have to know up front, identifying your obstacle, and if time is one of them, what are you going to do? So for a lot of families, I'll ask them if they haven't been successful in the past, if they're busy with kids, I'll say, maybe it's better that you hire a babysitter for a couple of hours so you can devote 100% of your attention to this project. Or do you need to block a Saturday afternoon? Or for some spaces, like if you're just going to do a closet, maybe you just need a couple hours. If you're going to do a garage, you probably need an entire day. So you really sort of have to know up front what the space is that you're going to do and have a sense of how long it's going to take you to get through the project.
Now, will you do that when you work with a client? Say, okay, we want to organize these 5 rooms, and you say, okay, number 1's going to take about 3 hours, and then you try to lay that out on a calendar or something? Or what's the best way to approach, overcoming those obstacles once you've identified them?
So this process is meant to help people somewhat do it on their own. So if they're doing it on their own, I try to get them to help them understand what the time is going to be. But if I'm working with them, certain spaces can be done over piecemeal, let's say. So I might work with them 3 hours at a time. That's about when most people get burnt out. And then I'll come back a week later, and like certain spaces like an office might take 2 sessions, a kitchen might take 1 or 2 sessions, a closet might only be 1 session. But I always tell people a space like a garage, that's really hard to do piecemeal because you literally have to take everything out, and to get everything back in, you need an entire day. So I help them to understand what the amount of time is. And these questions are part of my consultation, so then they can decide how much help do they want from me and how much do they want to do on their own.
Okay, so does that kind of cover the second step, or is there anything else we need to get into?
Well, the only other obstacles that people often encounter is lack of family buy-in. So there's usually one person setting up the system or who really wants organization. And so they're not successful because not everybody's on board. So what I'll often tell people is, first of all, you need to communicate to your family how important this is to you, as well as showing them, if you set up a system, where things go and how they should be put away, so that when someone takes something out, they can put it back where it goes. Now, nothing's perfect. I have a family. Not everybody listens to me. It's not always how it goes. So, things are going to get out of whack. But the biggest thing you want to try to achieve is how quickly can you recover. And if you really have a family member who's like not interested in this and really just isn't on board, then maybe you give them a space for their stuff. Fine. You don't want to get into this process, then let's just devote this room or this cabinet or whatever, and this is where you can have your stuff, but I'd like to try to keep my space organized.
Right. Well, it's also good to hear that someone else has kids that don't necessarily listen to them all the time. Okay.
Yeah, my kids are perfect.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. All right. What's the third step then in the 6-step process?
The next step is committing your resources. So when you start this process, you can, like I said, a lot of people just dive in and they start just randomly getting rid of stuff or throwing stuff away. So I'll often start a project. I might not know what the ultimate container is and something that looks nice or that it's the right size or shape. So I'll just go and get file boxes or banker's boxes. You get those at any office supply store. And we start with those. And those, you want to label them keep, toss, donate, and then if you need shred and recycle, if you're doing paper projects, you might need separate things for that. So then you can start, as you start picking things up, you can just put them in these different boxes or areas to just designate, to keep the things that you're going to keep together, and the rest of the stuff that's going to go out is in an area. So those are the sort of the resources that you need.
Do you say you do one room at a time then with that, or and try to get everything into the boxes, and once everything's in the boxes, then you go and move to putting them in the right places, I suppose?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. I mean, mostly, everything you're going to keep might not necessarily be in a box. Sometimes I'll just sort of put it in places around the floor, but that's sort of the general categories of things that you need. And these file boxes or banker's boxes are just a good place to start. So then you have all your donate items together, and you can easily take them out of the room when you've sort of now sorted through everything. But the other resources that sometimes I'll use, if I'm doing an office, folders. I might use like quart-sized plastic baggies. I might have some permanent markers. But generally, like, you just need to know, what do I need to do to work through this space to help me in this process? And then the other really important thing that I tell people to have is you should have a label maker available. That's the other resource.
Is there a certain label maker you recommend that you like working with?
I'm a big fan of the Brother brand. Dynamo is another brand that people use, but I prefer Brother over Dynamo. I just like the way it interacts. And I also tell people you don't need to go out and get a highly engineered million bells and whistles. I have a probably $50 label maker that has 3 fonts and a couple different, extra symbols, and that's about it. Doesn't have to be really complicated.
Anyway, we're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll get to the other 3 of the 6 steps in the organizing process. And we are with Lori Krolik from moretimeforyou.net, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking to get your office organized but don't know where to start? And what can you really do to keep your office organized? Smead has put together a new ebook to help you answer these exact questions. We've compiled the best tips from professional organizers around the country to help you tackle the most common office organizing challenges. Go to smead.com/office organization and get your free copy today. That's smead.com/office organization. The new organization for the office ebook from Smead, keeping you organized.
We are back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about the 6-step process to approach any organizing project. We are with Lori Krolik from moretimeforyou.net. And Lori, let's quickly recap the first 3 steps so we can be in the right place.
Okay, so the first step is design your plan.
Okay.
Then you want to identify your obstacles. Why haven't you been successful in the past, and what are you going to do differently this time? Then committing your resources. What supplies do you need to move forward with this?
Okay, well, now we're ready for step number 4.
So this is the heart of any organizing project. Step 4 is sorting and purging. And the main goal during this step is you want to get like items together and get out what you no longer want or need. That is the purpose of this step.
Okay, and in that step, do you try to, when you're trying to purge, right? You some stuff you're going to give away, some stuff you're going to throw away. Do you kind of separate it at that point, or is that coming later on?
Well, as I said before, so you want to have a keep and you want to have a donate and a trash. So the donation items you definitely want to have together. And as part of the design your plan, I'll often ask people to think up front, if you're going to get rid of things, where are you going to give them? Are you giving them to your local charity? Are you giving them to your friend because they like some of the stuff that you don't like anymore? Things like that.
Okay, so any other tips or tricks associated with this piece of the process, this step?
So sorting and purging, like I said, the biggest thing you want to do here is just getting your like items together. And then what people have the hardest time with is really, do I need this? Should I have this? And so there's some questions you can ask yourself about, to help you make that decision. Should I really hold on to this? Things like, have I used this in the last year? Do I really love this item? Or just because somebody gave you something doesn't mean you need to hold on to it because they gave you a gift. If you don't love it or need it, and they're not visiting your house on a daily basis asking you where that item is, it's okay to get rid of it. And so they need that permission to sort of let things go.
Do you have kind of like a criteria for gotta love it? Is there a certain threshold or kind of some rules you put behind, whether you love it or not? How do you judge whether you love it or not?
Well, sometimes what I'll ask people to do, like touch the item, pick it up with your hands. How do you feel, having this item around? And so sometimes it takes a little bit of encouragement and things like that. And then they can come to the conclusion on their own. And sometimes some people, if it's just really like they're not sure, I don't want someone to get rid of something that they're going to have regrets over. So if they're really not sure, then it's okay to keep it. But the biggest thing that I tell people is there's a limit to the amount of stuff that you can have, and it's defined by the amount of space that you have available. So if you only have a dresser drawer that's 6 drawers and you have more clothes than will fit in that drawer than those drawers, then you're going to have to make some decisions. But I'm not going to, tell you what you can keep or what you need to keep or get rid of if you can fit everything in those 6 drawers.
Wow. Okay. So does that cover point number 4 adequately, you think?
That's good.
Okay, good. Well, let's move on to number 5.
So now, once you've sorted and purged, you've got everything out, you're ready to create your system. As you said before, you want to find that home for everything. So where are things going to live? And so this is really about containerizing. So questions that I'll ask my clients is, are some of these items better off in a cabinet or a drawer? Do you need to go out and buy a container that you really like and love, and because it's going to be something that's going to be out and you want it to look nice? How do you need to access this stuff? Is a container with a lid better than something that doesn't have a lid? So those are the kinds of questions to think about. Where's the easiest place so that you can find this item when you need it and you can access it easily, as well as put it away easily?
Now, do you have any rules of thumb as far as measuring for containers, or how you would design the use of containers in a particular space?
Well, definitely before you head to the store or hit the button to order something online, you should definitely measure, because buying ill-fitting containers makes the process really frustrating. There's no exact science to how you measure. Like a lot of times, if I'm working with a client, so I work with a lot of clients in home office, and I use magazine holders and desktop file holders a lot. And so if something's out on your desk, I want you to love it. Like don't go get the commercial, just steel grade that isn't very pretty when you could have something like from the Container Store, some of these online sites where there's fabrics and colors that are really going to make you want to use something more because you really like the way it looks. When you're putting something into a drawer or a cabinet, it's not necessarily as important what that container looks like, just that it's functional. Right. And then you have to make sure that it fits and holds what you need.
Do you have any ideas for unique containers that hold unique kinds of items that you could think about with maybe some clients you've worked with, where you had, okay, what are we going to do to hold this? And then you've come up with a kind of a unique container to hold it?
Well, there's so many. Now there's, as you guys know, at Smead, there's a whole industry around containerizing everyone's stuff.
Right.
So when it comes to things like paper, I often tell people to really think vertical. Having things in horizontal ways is just, things are getting lost and buried. So like I said, I use magazine holders a lot, which are great for holding all different kinds of paper. I'll even look at what people have in their own homes. I mean, maybe they have a box that is from some store that they really liked, and if it's the right size and shape, then we'll use it. There are just so many options now for containerizing stuff. I've often used in garages, I use these brick type things from Container Store that's it comes in all different sizes, and they work really well in closets or garages, and they just come in different sizes, and they're open and they're square. On that same note, I like things that are really uniform. When you have things that are more, narrower at the bottom and wider at the top, sometimes they don't fit on shelves and they don't hold as much stuff.
Okay, so that was point 5. Anything else to add? Any little tips or tricks, or should we move on to point number 6?
I think we can move on. And the last step really is now about that you've created the system, you know where things go. You've told your family, okay, here's the system. You've labeled things to make it really easy for everybody to find things. and put things away, but how are you going to maintain that? So no matter, I can come in and I can organize your space, or you can organize your space, but if nobody puts anything away ever, it's not going to stay that way. So you need to have some kind of maintenance plan. Now, I'm not a person who believes like your house should look like a Pottery Barn catalog all the time, or everything should be really neat and your life should be consumed with cleaning things up. But really what you're trying to decide is how quickly can you recover. So if you have homes for everything and things are going to get out of whack, that you can, if someone was called up and said, hey, we're coming over in in 10 minutes, that you could easily put things away, and how quickly can you recover. I recently worked with a woman. We had just done her office or a lot of her paperwork. And in the past, their way of dealing with papers was everything that was important just went in this one drawer. And that worked well, but what's the definition of important? So when we finally separated things out and she had a file of all of her kids' birth certificates and marriage license, all of her important documents, things like that, she was so excited because she actually had to go find something. She was in the middle of some legal thing and she knew exactly where to go look for her stuff. And it just makes it a lot easier when things have a place.
Do you think there's a certain time period, like every month or every 2 months, or how often should someone go back and revisit their system?
Well, a lot depends on the room. So if it's probably a home office that you're in a lot, you probably need to do some kind of cleanup and maintenance a little bit every day, meaning I just finished this, I'm not going to leave everything all over. I'm just going to spend a few minutes at the end of the day cleaning up. Once a week, doing like a review of some kind and making sure that things are back in their place. But a space that's not used as much, like a guest room or even like your kids' playrooms. Yeah, they need to clean up after themselves, but do you need to do a system redo every day? No, but probably once a month. What have they outgrown? What are they no longer playing with? What can we get rid of? Those kinds of sort of walking through the spaces and seeing what's still working and what's not. And on that note, one thing that I always tell people to have is have a donation bin for, anytime you walk through your house and you see something, oh, I don't need this anymore, or I'm not really using this, that you can just throw it in the bin versus thinking of that overwhelming task of, oh my gosh, I've got to organize this entire room.
Okay. Well, those are great steps. And for those that didn't catch all of them, we will have them in our show notes at smead.com/podcast. Lori, why don't we're going to run out of time here. Just tell us a little bit about More Time for You, how people can get a hold of you, and what kinds of services you provide.
So basically my website is moretimeforyou.net. I'm based in Palo Alto, California, and people can access me through my website, moretimeforyou.net, or they can email me, info@moretimeforyou.net. I generally work with clients in their homes. I work on everything from kitchens and closets and garages, but my specialty is home office. So I work a lot with people and helping them to get rid of their paper piles and be more productive in their space. I also teach electronic tools, calendars, task lists, things like Evernote. I work with a lot of people on that to make them more productive in their home office.
And do you do virtual consulting as well, or is it just all in the Palo Alto area?
I do virtual consulting, mostly with clients on productivity and around helping them be more productive in their computer space, looking at their calendar, a lot that we can do. I work with a lot of clients like through Skype or over the phone and logging into their computers and showing them how they can be more productive with their office tools.
Great. All right, Lori, as usual, lots of good tips, and we'll have you back again to talk more about productivity and getting organized. So, folks, there you have it, the 6-step process for approaching any organizing project today on Keeping You Organized.
Coming up next time on Keeping You Organized.
The 5S system was created by the Japanese in post-World War II Japan, and it was created initially for manufacturing companies to decrease waste on their floor. So really it's about decreasing waste and increasing flow, and this is all part of lean daily management.